is back with the episode of the week. Today we're going to be talking about the UTSA game coming up on Saturday, as well as recapping the Alabama showdown that happened last weekend. Close game. Texas loses 20-19 in a game that we very well could have won. We'll definitely dissect that. That'll be a good portion of today's video. But we're also going to look ahead to UTSA. We got a challenge with the Roadrunners coming to town. A lack of quarterbacks that might be able to play for us at the moment. It's starting to look like Charles Wright show is actually going to happen, which certainly calls for a fair amount of discussion. It's not every day that your third stringer is coming in to start. So yeah, plenty to discuss here. Hope you guys enjoy it. Before we get into it, though, just want to ask that you please like, comment, and subscribe as always, especially if you're new here. Over the summer and kind of over the spring, we slowed down with our content creation process, but we have since gotten back into a routine with the season now here and going alive and well. So we just ask that if you're new here and you like what you see, to please follow along and kind of help engage with us right now as we're trying to get back in more of a steady routine of things and continue to grow this platform. So thank you again for all those that are subscribed and that continue to watch. So I was not fortunate enough, or unfortunate, I don't know, it depends how you look at it, but I was not present at the actual UT Alabama game that happened last weekend. I was out of town, but I did certainly watch it, as a lot of the nation did. Myers was in attendance, though, and before we get into the actual nitty-gritty of what that game was, break down just the atmosphere, because that seems to be a big talking point right now, really across the nation. I mean, College Game Day, just like literally as we recorded this, just tweeted out a video talking about the atmosphere, and it's been mentioned on all these other national programs. I know, again, not that his opinion matters, but even Stephen A. Smith was ranting about the Texas atmosphere that happened, at McAfee and others. Myers, just talk about what that experience was like. Obviously, you've been to many, many, many UT games. Just what was that like for you?
I would describe it as the Texas fan base that day, especially the student section, was possessed. We were just behaving in ways that we usually don't, and I think it's great. It's kind of like introducing ourselves to the SEC. I remember it was just very loud. First of all, it was probably the loudest 11 a.m. game I've been to at DKR. I'll still say LSU was louder because I was in the student section back then, so that's going to be a different experience. And it was a night game, but it was very loud. It was like Cotton Bowl, maybe louder than the Cotton Bowl, probably. But yeah, we're very hostile, I noticed. I mean, I recall one play where, right before the safety, or should have been safety, Jahmyr Gibbs just sitting in the backfield about to take the snap, and then a water bottle just comes up from the second deck and just pelts him in the helmet. And then the fans start booing because the ref stopped the game. And this is just typical stuff that we haven't seen out of the Texas fan base. And then there was a bunch of "F you Bama" chants throughout the game that you could hear on the broadcast if you go back and watch it. And my cousin, just a lot of, just Alabama jokes about their cousins coming from the student section. So I think it's good that we kind of made it a hostile environment. I mean, Will Anderson even said that was the most loud, crazy environment he's ever played in. And he's played in pretty much every one in the SEC, the Swamp, Death Valley, Kyle Field. So that's a really good, Iron Bowl. So that's a huge endorsement, especially when it's at 11 a.m. I mean, that just shows you that DKR does have the ability to be, one of the toughest places to play, especially if you play them at night. And the fans, we made a huge difference. I mean, when Quinn went down, it was you could just feel it in the stadium. It's like a kick to the nuts or something. The whole life in the stadium just left, and then the defense went on the field and they started picking us back up, and then the fans got back into it, and it was electric the whole way. So I was really impressed with the atmosphere, the way the students were lined up at 5 a.m. with that giant line, and you could see it on College Game Day. them rushing into the stadium at like 8 a.m. I mean, that's what you need. That's what you need out of your fan base, because I mean, when you have a fan base like that behind you, it makes you play to a higher level than you even think you can when you have all that adrenaline with you. So hopefully we see more of that in the future. And man, that was a great experience. Even though we lost, that was definitely a memorable game in DKR.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I was pretty impressed with everything that I saw on TV, especially right before kickoff as the game day crew was making their final picks. It definitely looked full and pretty hostile for sure. So it was impressive. I mean, I kind of expected that. I know a lot of people were asking me like, or even saying like, oh, I don't really know, Texas is such a big underdog in this game and it's at 11 a.m. Like, is there even going to be a big crowd? I'm like, it's Alabama. Of course there's going to be a big crowd. Every time we have a notable opponent come into town, which isn't common, at least at the moment with us in the Big 12 conference, since OU is a neutral site game. We show up for the big games. I mean, that's never been an issue. You look back to, recently with LSU, that was a complete sellout crowd. USC was a sellout. Notre Dame was a big one. Even going back to like 2012 when West Virginia was in the top 10 or something like that. Like that was my first UT game I ever went to. Kind of a random game, but I remember that even being a sellout. So we show up for the big games for sure, and the energy always seems to be met. It's just a matter of like, can you get the fan base to do that consistently? Given the Texas fan base, I'm not sure if you really can, but I'm sure come the time that we finally move to the SEC, I think you're going to see a lot more of that consistently, because the issue right now is we just don't play a lot of really exciting teams. I mean, not that the Big 12 is bad. There's a lot of great teams in the Big 12, but it's kind of hard to get super excited when you're playing like a Kansas State. I don't care how good Kansas State is, and they've fielded some amazing teams. But it's Kansas State, no offense, but in Alabama, for sure, you're going to get a big crowd. So all in all, very impressed with what I saw. Let's transition into the actual game. Do you want to start defense or offense?
Let's start with the defense, because man, that was didn't see that one coming.
No.
Where to begin? I think first of all, the D line was phenomenal. Just the trio of Keandre Coburn, Moro Ojimo, Tavondre Sweat. Matt Madrid and I were hating on them before the season. We're like, these are the same names that have been here, and after 4 years, it's hard to believe they're going to change. Like, that's who they are. But man, they played like I've never seen them play before. Moro Ojimo is like getting like really good draft stock all of a sudden now, because keep in mind he's like a fifth-year senior, or like he's an older player, but he was like 15 or 14 when he like enrolled. Like, he was insanely young. So he's probably like, he's a younger, his like clock is younger. Anyways, Moro Ojimo is a guy that's making money. A lot of people made money on Saturday, I will say. Jalen Ford, everybody played good. I can't single out a single person that played bad. Even our boy Vernon Broughton, a guy that I've been really critical of. He on that first series, he shed a block off of Bama O lineman and went and laid out Bryce Young and like forced a really nearly interception. And I was like, where did this come from? And there was just a lot of players doing that. I mean, the way we were tackling in the open field, all of our DBs like Jahdae Barron, even Austin Jordan, who got sent in after Deshaun Jameson, the true freshman Austin Jordan out of Denton Ryan, he held his own. He looked physical. He knew where to go. The way we were communicating, I mean, I haven't seen us play defense like that since, I guess, 2017, because we did have that really good defense that one year with Todd Orlando, Herman's first year.
I was going to say 08.
Yeah, I think it goes further back to
seriously.
Yeah, I agree with that. When you had Earl Thomas and Kean Robinson and all them, it just feels like a unit now, and it just feels like we fly to the ball, we swarm the ball, and it's just like, and the coverage held up. I mean, we talked about that before the game. Like, Bama doesn't have these elite all-world receivers, and they clearly don't. I mean, the Longhorn Blitz podcast kind of said it how it was. on their last episode, they said that Texas has a better receiver room than Alabama, like top to bottom. I think our receiver room, and especially at the top, we got stars like Xavier Worthy in there, and our DBs are probably like, you know what, we see better players than these every week in practice, so let's go lock them down. And that's what we did for the most part. I mean, at the end, Bryce Young, had his Heisman moment, but the defense, I mean, you got to give PK and Gary Patterson a lot of credit and the players. It was just it was surprising, man, because once you lose Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card's playing on one foot, and in general, Hudson Card's not a guy you want to play against Dallas Turner and Will Anderson, but the defense, like, they've rallied for the team, and they held it down. They put us in a position to win that game, and then our offense got the field goal. So, I mean, I was just enthralled. I was shocked. I just hope it can be a consistent thing going forward. I hope this is who we are. And I think it might be. So what do you think, Trevor? I'm sorry, I just wanted to rant right there.
No, all good things. No, I completely agree. Just as a whole, everything was just so fundamentally sound. Like, outside of, that missed tackle on Bryce Young at the end of the game, and that one big play that went for 80 yards for the touchdown, like, that's the best tackling I've seen in like any recent memory of this team. Like, it looked like a different team. Like, it just looked completely night and day different. Nothing that I've seen recently. So it was just a complete surprise. I mean, clearly, like you said, shout out to our coaches for really having this game plan prepared. I wanted to, not to backtrack here, but knowing now that Gary Patterson was kind of not the genius, but he was given the assignment of scheming up and planning out this Bama game in terms of the defensive attack. Given Gary's strategies, what were you watching the secondary at all? Like were we? Because it's hard to see it on TV, because TV is focused, on the front seven. It's really kind of hard to see the secondary players unless something big happens. But were our DBs like mugging the receivers the whole time? Because there was no, I mean, Bryce Young just wasn't getting the ball downfield because they weren't open, but I was just curious, were we like using the Gary Patterson special of like holding, on every play, or like were we just really good?
I mean, I think it was some of both, but there were a couple times when I noticed Ryan Watts just leaning on people, like as he should, with this giant, that's a giant cornerback. And then, but I don't want to like discredit them, because they were playing great defense. But I mean, there were times where, like, you hold a little bit here and there. I mean, every DB does that.
Right.
But for the most part, I think it was as clean as you can play. I mean, that brings up another thing. That defense was so disciplined. We were so much more disciplined than Alabama. We had so many fewer penalties, and I just felt like we were better prepared. I mean, it just sucks that we lost that game, because so many good things were there to take out of it, but then we also lost the game. So it's just kind of like, okay, I don't want to hype them up too much, but yeah, I agree with that. The defense held up. Bryce Young didn't take a single shot downfield, and even test him, which is crazy, because I guess nothing was there, and the pass rush was getting home. He was getting hit. He was getting hit like I've never seen Bryce Young get hit before. He was just getting sacked and flushed out of the pocket. So that was crazy. That was an A+ performance from the defense.
Yeah, and I additionally want to add on, I guess he's not on the defense, but you can lump special team. You can lump punting in with our defense. And I mean, shout out to Danny Trejo. Like, he hit some really good punts. It definitely kind of harkened back to the Michael Dixon days of just like, having a punter that can just bomb it like 60 something yards. Granted, that had a really good bounce, but in order to get to that length, but not even that one, but the other punt to get us like on the 1 yard line, like that was just spectacular. I mean, this is like pretty sure he's a walk-on, and certainly was not projected to be the starter over Pearson. So shout out to him. I think he earned his scholarship in this game if he didn't have it already, for sure. And I think he's got to be the starter going forward.
Yeah, that was incredible. He had one bad punt early in the game, but he was just nails after that. And he almost got us like 2 points off that safety with that great punt. I mean, it should have been either way. He was phenomenal. If we can keep getting that out of him, plus our defense plays like this, and then we eventually get Quinn Ewers back, I mean, that's going to be just every phase of the game just going to be on point. I mean, Bert Auburn did well too. We just need to figure out how to clean up everything around him, because the missed kick before half wasn't his fault, I want to say. It was a bad snap, and then it got tipped.
Yeah, so, it did get tipped. That's one thing that the announcers didn't catch, but after the fact, you could see that Will Anderson did get a hand on it. But yeah, there seems to be a snapping issue, which is kind of weird, because we just recruited a long snapper that I don't even know if we're actually even using the guy at the moment. Maybe he needs more time, but whoever we are using has clearly been struggling, because that happened last game too against Monroe. That was a bad snap. It wasn't even really a miss by, I mean, Auburn missed it as a result, but it wasn't Auburn's fault in that first week when we missed that field goal. So definitely needs to be addressed immediately. But yeah, Auburn's looking good. I mean, Stone's not too bad either. All in all, it's been impressive. Want to transition to offense, or you got any other final defensive thoughts?
No, let's talk about the offense and what they were doing to Alabama. I mean, do you want to start off with Quinn Ewers? I mean, let's start off with Quinn. Because Quinn Ewers comes out and the rust was gone. Like the ULM rust, he was just in the zone. That was just
crazy.
That was Joe Burrow-esque. I mean, he was just dicing them up, making it look easy. Just that far hash throw to Xavier Worthy with just beautiful timing, just easy 20-yard out NFL throw. And that was kind of like, oh crap, here, like he's locked in. And then from there, he just starts hitting Whittington with rushers in his face down the field to Worthy. Should have been a touchdown. I'm surprised Worthy caught that. I don't even know why he dove. He should have just caught that ball and just. That was a great ball. I know it was an awkward angle, but you got to catch that.
Yeah. But even the ref, it was very confusing, because like the ref next to him signaled touchdown, and like the cannon went off and everything, but you immediately saw Worthy like looking all upset. I was like, did he not catch that? Yeah, that was a big play right there. I mean, there's a slew of big plays that ultimately resulted in us losing this game that we just couldn't capitalize on. I think that's really the tell of the tape here, but that was one of them. There are actually a few plays by Worthy, if you want to be critical, that we could have used him, or we needed him to make a bigger play, but continue.
But yeah, I mean, just Quinn Ewers, the hype was fully on display. I mean, even like Aggies and Sooners were saying like that dude's the real deal. Like, and you could tell like whenever he got injured, that Sark, his game plan, his whole game plan, he said he didn't change it. He threw that whole game plan out. Everything changed. I mean, we started running like under center, like 3 straight running plays to settle in Hudson Card. I mean, the whole game plan was gone, which sucks, because Sark's a masterful game plan, and he had it rolling, at least in the first scripted plays. He had Bama exposed. And I felt like Quinn was going to keep going for at least over 300 yards through the air, probably more.
Oh, easily. I mean, he had like 150 the first quarter or something. Maybe not that much, but well over 100 in the first quarter.
Yeah, he's the one that looked like the Heisman. That's what I was saying to my dad. I was like, he looks way better than Bryce Young right now, because he did. And I just hope we can get him back, because, I mean, that player, I mean, if you have a healthy Quinn Ewers the rest of the season, I don't see why if we play like that, like we shouldn't lose another game. So, I just not enough good things to say about Quinn Ewers. He was a baller, just taking hits. I mean, that was still a good play on his injury. Like that was a good play getting rid of that ball, but just unlucky. But yeah, Quinn Ewers was phenomenal. I can't wait to get him back. I think he'll be back for West Virginia. That's my bold prediction. He'll be back a week before OU. Fingers crossed, though, because keep in mind he played with like a sports hernia in high school, and it's kind of a pain tolerance thing. It's a grade A grade 1 AC or whatever sprain, so clavicle sprain. So there's no damage there. It's just a pain tolerance. So, and he's shown in the past that he's going to play through pain for his team. So you don't want to rush him back too fast. Obviously, that's our franchise quarterback right there. But I think if he's in a good enough spot where he can go out and play with his because it's his non-throwing shoulder. So I feel like he'll be back for OU for sure. Unless there's a setback, but I'm optimistic. But yeah, I mean,
I
aside
agree.
from
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I agree. As soon as the injury happened, and then once we received word about what exactly happened, um, I was with a bunch of friends this weekend, and one of them is in the medical profession, and I told him the injury, and he was like, yeah, that should be 2 to 3 weeks. So, I think the whole 4 to 6 is being a little bit generous. And also the fact that, well, it's his non-throwing shoulder, so that's huge. That it's not his throwing shoulder. Otherwise, be a whole nother story, I'm sure. But yeah, it seems like it's more of just a pain thing. And we'll get into this, but I don't think we should be able to get by without him the next, really leading up to the Red River game, because Texas Tech, UTSA, and West Virginia, that is, no offense to them, and there's certainly teams that could beat us if we're not ready for it. But I will say that's a pretty easy stretch to get through without a Quinn Ewers. Thank goodness it's not a Oklahoma State, Baylor, or anything like that, where you're really gonna need big talent there. So yeah, I expect the ideal situation is have him back for West Virginia, just to get the gears going again for him before Oklahoma. But I say that even if you want to hold off until Oklahoma, you probably can.
I feel like we can beat UTSA, we can beat West Virginia at home, but I feel like Texas Tech's going to be one that's going to be really difficult to win in Lubbock with Hudson Card or Charles Wright. That's going to be a very rabid, hostile environment, and Texas Tech's
a
not.
day game. Thankfully,
Yeah.
I was so happy to see that, because I was getting worried. I'm like, if it's a night game in Lubbock and we got a backup or a third stringer, like we're in trouble. So fortunately, it's a 2:30 game, but I hear you.
Yeah. So we'll see. That's the thing. That's the thing to watch going forward. I mean, but yeah, you're so right. Like the timing is as good as you can ask for with UTSA, West Virginia, and Tech before OU. So fingers crossed he gets back. But let's talk about the rest of the offense that play. I mean, first of all, the O-line. I mean, people are giving Kelvin Banks all the love, which, I mean, that dude is ridiculous. That's a freshman 5-star. But
he's crazy.
But not just him. I mean, even Christian Jones. Christian Jones, the guy that we've been hating on. I mean, he's fit in nicely. He's always been better at right tackle, and clearly this year he's taken that next step. And I want to signal out one play that I loved. Whenever we had a little dump pass to Jatavion, like one of those back shoulder screens or whatever, those little 2-yard passes, and Jatavion lost his footing and fell over. And then Will Anderson comes over and hits him late. And then Christian Jones comes over here and shoves Will Anderson out the way. I was like, thank you. This is what we've been missing out of these boys.
Absolutely.
Like, this is what we need. Some nasty on the O-line. Then Hayden Connor looked nasty. He had that one on the first drive. He laid somebody out and it was called a blindside block. But I mean, that was a good block. I don't care. I mean, I don't know if it was a blindside or not. He was hitting right in the numbers. But yeah, I'm so impressed. And then Cole Hudson, the other freshman, he looks great. Jake Majors held his own in the interior. So, I mean, I was thinking we're going to have 4 of these 5 linemen back next year. This O-line is going to be something special. And then you have Devin Campbell on the in the wings, and all these other guys, Cam Williams. So Kyle Flood, Sark, they're doing a great job developing these O-linemen. And Kelvin Banks, just keep him healthy. That's a first round left tackle for sure. So not enough good things to say. Although the run blocking was not good. I mean, but we knew that coming in, that you're not going to generate holes against this Bama front 7 very often. So I mean, the pass pro was great. The run blocking was, Bijan didn't really have anywhere to go. I will say I wish Sark. The one critique I have, I mean, he was playing with his hands tied behind his back, but I wish he would have featured Bijan in the passing game more. Those little swing
I agree.
passes, those worked so well for us. Whether it was Worthy, Whittington, it was
Mhm.
always like a chunk, 7, 8 yards, at least 5 yards. Keep the chains moving. We hit Bijan like a couple times on passes, and it was great, but we didn't. I thought we should have passed to him at least 10 times, especially with the run game being so inefficient. Like
I agree.
that's one thing that Sark I think wishes he could have back. But man, our receiver stepped up Whittington like right in the first drive. Casey Kane had that big time completion down the stretch. Worthy, aside from the one drop, played great. Um, I I thought it was a good game. I mean, shout out to Hudson Card for battling through whatever he was going through, because you could tell he could barely walk. And I mean, that's not an ideal situation for anybody to be in. So I mean, he did all he could. He put us in a position to win. We hit the field goal. We just couldn't get that last stop. So, uh, what do you think about the offense? Anything else stand out to you in particular?
Yeah, just some of those formations coming out, like my God, Sark, like dude, some of them and I wish he continued with that, because yeah, it's clear that as soon as Quinn went out, it went back to just a very vanilla basic offense, which is fine. We were able to still move the ball kind of down the field, not as effectively though, but um yeah, Sark's just so good at coming up with, those really creative plays. And I realized I saw that we used I thought it was genius. I don't know why we haven't done this before, but he would use 6 offensive linemen um quite frequently to get protection, to give time for Quinn or whoever was throwing to get the ball down the field. I'm like, why have we not thought of this until now? But that's a great idea. I mean, obviously, you don't want to have to do that, but when you got ballers like Xavier Worthy that are going to get separation, um, you don't need you can afford to take a receiver off the field and make sure you got better blocking, just so the quarterback can hit that target. So, yeah, I was impressed. Yeah, I agree though. I wish we used the running backs in general a little bit more in the passing game. I think we just did a it was clear that the run game just wasn't there for us that day. And I feel like we just kind of kept going back to it, especially near the end of the game, too. Um, when I wanted to see them get into space a little bit more, with a little bit more motion going on. I will also note that I was a little disappointed that we didn't feature some of the guys that we thought maybe were being saved up for the Alabama game. Like, I don't think Ajay Hall played at all in the game. I don't even know if Brennan Thompson played in the game. And I know that both of those guys are kind of green right now, but like there's no film on. I mean, obviously there's some film on Ajay Hall from his Alabama days, but there's not real film on them. And maybe they're being saved up for Oklahoma, or maybe they just need more time. But I think those can be really big weapons for you, especially with who's hurt right now at receiver.
Nayor?
Nair, yeah, my goodness. Yeah, especially with Nair out. Which, by the way, imagine Nair in this game, like it would have been game over too. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on the offense, but really just the offensive line definitely stood out. That was just I was shocked that we continued to get so many big plays, like sitting back in the pocket, holding onto the ball for like 3-4 seconds. And yeah, the rush got to us a handful of times, but I mean, that's the best I've seen our offensive line look in a very long time, especially, against one of the best, D lines in the country. So it was very exciting to see for sure. And yeah, Hudson hats off to Hudson. He, really balled. Well, didn't ball, but gave it his full effort, and clearly was, dealing with a bit of pain. And a lot of people were saying that was affecting his throwing, uh, especially as the game progressed. So I just wish we could have taken a few more chances, because our offense definitely needed a boost. Because you can't just settle for field goals against Alabama. They're too good of a team. Even if your defense is just shutting them out, which it did. Our defense shut them out for like 2 quarters, I think, where they or like 6 drives in a row where they had to punt or something ridiculous like that. We just totally shut them down. But I mean, you got to take advantage of that, because we went to a red zone probably like 5-6 times and weren't able to, get a touchdown, which is just kind of criminal, honestly.
Yeah, not having Quinn didn't help that either. I feel like we would have punched some of those in. But did you notice that we were huddling? Like we were huddling between, like we never huddle, do we?
No.
So Sark just, and all the formations, the diamond formation, like Sark definitely is a masterful game planner, and it's just fun to watch him work. I mean, that's a football genius right there. And I was honestly, in general, I will say that Sark outcoached Saban.
Oh,
He had
yeah.
the more disciplined football team. He had the better prepared
Easy.
football team.
Easy.
We just didn't have Bryce Young, and they did. And
Mhm.
we didn't have Quinn Ewers, who we should have had.
Yep.
So that's what it came down to. I mean, our defense held everything. We should have won that game. Texas looks great. However, we've seen this before in the past where we play great against good teams and then fizzle out. So, well, this could be, the game that springs us forward into like a new standard of Texas football, but it could also just be like a flash in the pan. So that's going to be what to watch. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but I think by the Texas Tech game, the end of the Texas Tech game, we'll know if this team, this culture, if it's completely different, because it'll be pretty obvious to tell. Even against UTSA, I know we might have Charles Wright in there, but we'll be able to tell defensively, like, was that a one-time thing, or is this who we are now? So it's exciting, man. It's very promising, but I'm not trying to say we're back or anything. We lost. We're 1-1, and we got a whole season left. So anything else on the Bama game? You want like big picture, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we do need to address the referees, because everyone admits, including non-Texas fans, that they were definitely a big part of the game. Like 15 penalties against Alabama very easily could have been over 20, I think. They were just unbelievably sloppy, like uncharacteristically. I don't know why I can't say that word right now, but just not what Bama is at all. Yeah, and there were a lot of missed calls. My perspective on it, though, is like, we know this. We know to never rely on the refs. So even though, unfortunately, refs and calls are a big part of the game, you should never have that be something that your game hinges upon. And you should always expect, especially as us Texas fans that have historically, at least in recent memory, had a lot of struggles with the referees, that should always be anticipated. So while that's like a big argument as to, oh, like if it wasn't for this, it wasn't for that, like we could have won the game. Absolutely. But in my opinion, like I prefer, like, let's focus on what we could actually control and not on what the refs can control, because yeah, it's unfortunate, but the refs can kind of call whatever they want and they don't have to apologize for it either, like they do in the NFL. And that's the only thing that, well, it's not the only thing, but that is one thing that really sucks about college football, is just, I feel like politics play into the referees these days. And yeah, but in my opinion, just, I'm not letting that be a strong argument as to why we lost. There were plenty of opportunities that we missed out on, but
yeah.
What do you think? You were there.
Despite the refs, we still should have won that game. We still blew opportunities. Yeah, but like at a certain point, they're getting flagged left and right because they're just so undisciplined. They're penalties every play. Like at a certain point, the ref's gonna swallow his whistle and be like, "Look, I can't call a flag on every play."
Yeah.
So that sucks. But I mean, just keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully karma will come back around when it comes to reffing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Because I mean, they did call penalties. There's just the fact that they committed so many. You know, it was like every freaking play. But yeah.
Yeah, that hold on that Bryce Young scramble at the end, that was that hurt. That hurt, the non-hold. But
For sure. All right, so now we're going to transition over and actually talk the UTSA game coming up. So Myers, why don't we first address UTSA, just kind of what to look out for, and then we can do more of a breakdown of our own team and keys in order for Texas to actually win the game. So tell me a little bit about what you know about UTSA.
yeah, UTSA has really ascended out of nowhere. They were basically a new team like 10, 12 years ago, like a new football program, and now they're like already being invited to the American Athletic Conference, which is like the step right before Power Five. So they're making big moves, and that's mainly because Jeff Traylor. They made a great hire with Jeff Traylor. Y'all remember Jeff Traylor, I'm sure. He used to coach here with Coach Strong. He's like a tight ends coach.
Yeah.
And then Herman was like, no, we're not going to retain you. And then he brought in like Corby Meekins or something embarrassing like that instead. But anyways, he went off to Arkansas, SMU, and then he got this head coaching job. And mainly because he has such deep ties to Texas through his days at Gilmer as a high school coach. So he's the man. Honestly, I love his interviews. He's got that thick East Texas accent. And he's a guy that if Sark flames out one day, he's a guy that I would want to be our coach because he's gonna get a good job somewhere eventually. Maybe he'll take over A&M when they fire Jimbo. But no, man, they're good. I mean, last year they were really good. They were like in discussion for a New Year's Six bowl last year. I mean, they almost went undefeated. They did lose a lot though. They're a different team. They're a very veteran last year, but they do have Frank Harris back at quarterback, who's a problem. He's from San Antonio. I think he went to Clemens. He's a really good dual threat guy. He's their leading rusher and passer right now. So, Bryce Young kind of killed us when he ran. When nothing was there, he'd run and pick up first down. So I'm sure they're going to be trying to do that as well. So I need to contain him. They have Traylon Smith at running back. If you remember Traylon Smith, he was the Arkansas running back last season. He kind of shred us up in Fayetteville. He transferred down to UTSA, and I mean, he hasn't put up big numbers or anything yet, but that's just a guy that is capable. So he's someone to watch as well. And then on the outside, they have a couple of good receivers. Zachary Franklin's their number one guy. I mean, he kind of put up numbers similar to Xavier Worthy last year. So he's a guy that can, create big plays. So he's a guy that you might want to put Ryan Watts on because, I mean, that's our top corner now, especially if Jameson's not going to play. So he's one that'll get us if we're not, minding our P's and our Q's. And then they're just as a team, they're more of an offensive team than a defensive team. Their defense is not that great. I will say though, for their offense, the way that we can really beat them is at the line of scrimmage. Especially, I think their tackles are like injured or something. They don't have good tackles on the outside. So Baron Sorrell, DeMarvion Overshown on the edge, Ovia Gofu, they need to have a field day because that's going to be where we're going to create our pressure from more so than the interior. Although Morrow and Keandre Coburn, if they keep playing like they did against Alabama, they'll have no problem getting in the interior as well. So I think we can really dominate the line of scrimmage if we keep that level of play up to what it was last weekend. But defensively, I mean, the thing is, who's that quarterback for us? That's the question. But I think we can run on UTSA, especially with Bijan, especially on the outside zones. We need to keep running those outside zones. That's where we have more success. I mean, they're not going to have Alabama's run defense because that run defense was phenomenal for Alabama. And then in the secondary, they have Rashard Wisdom too, who's a great player, probably going to be an NFL player, safety. I feel like he's been there forever, but he's a guy you have to watch out for. But as far as personnel, I know they have Lamonte McDougal at defensive tackle, which is like the best name ever. So, and he's pretty good too. So he will clog it up. So, yeah, I mean, not much to say other than this is a team that Texas can lose to if we don't come out fully focused because Jeff Traylor is a master motivator. I mean, he's kind of got that Tom Herman gene, I feel like, where he can just rally a locker room for a big game. And this is, how Alabama was for us last week. This is to them what Alabama was to us. Like, they want to come in and beat University of Texas. I mean, UTSA wants to play. They get to play in DKR against the University of Texas. I mean, I'm sure their fans, everybody, like this is it for them. Like, this is a huge moment for them, and they know that we have probably our third string quarterback in, so they're going to come in believing they can win. And I mean, they probably could if we don't play an A game. So with that said, though, we should definitely still take care of business here, as long as our players and coaches are not taking them lightly, which I don't think they are. Like, Christian Jones has had some really good quotes. Steve Sarkisian have had great quotes this week that they're fully locked in on UTSA and mainly locked in on ourselves and getting better, which is, I mean, it'd be pretty easy to like just kind of relax a little bit right now because we look so good against Bama, thinking, oh, we're making progress, and then lose the UTSA. So I think that our coaches are aware of that, and our players, our leaders. So I think we're in a good spot here. It's just the quarterback situation, and Bijan. Is Bijan going to play? So that's kind of the main question marks going into UTSA. Any thoughts on UTSA or just the team's health and general mindset?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much everything that you said. I will give a few thoughts about them, but it probably won't be until we give keys to the games where we can kind of talk about the opportunities that Texas can take advantage of in regards to the UTSA team, because there are a few, a good amount that if we expose and make light of some of their deficiencies, I think that we can pretty easily control the game.
Yeah. And back to like what we were saying in the Bama game, I want to see more of those little swing passes out to the flats. I mean, our receivers are good blockers, and it's nice to say that because in the past it hasn't been like that. So especially against UTSA, I mean, if we're having trouble running the ball, just throw it out to Bijan or Worthy or Whittington in the flats and let them go pick up 7 yards. Let Casey Kane go mug someone downfield while he's blocking, or Jatavion. So I want to see some of that, and I want to see Xavier Worthy finally get some touchdowns. I mean, he's been making plays for us, but we need to get him in positions to go score, get him in the open field, let him show off his just ridiculous footwork, because that dude, especially with no quarterback now and maybe Bijan not playing, like, you got to go to Worthy and make sure you get him the ball. This might be a game where you break out Brendan Thompson on some sweeps. I'm surprised he hasn't played. I mean, with speed like that, I'm surprised. And he had such good reports out of practice, so I'm shocked that he hasn't touched the field yet. But maybe Ajay Hall. I mean, I think he'll probably make his debut this weekend, so we'll see what he's made of. I mean, we know the talent, we know the upside, but is he mentally ready to go? So just some things I want to see from our offense. And then, I mean, if Bijan doesn't play, a lot of Roshan. I mean, Roshan played great against Alabama. A lot of Jonathan Brooks, because Brooks is a great running back too. We just don't really get to see him that often. And maybe even Jaden Blue gets in there. So that's a good thing about the Bijan potential injury, is we have a lot of horses in that running back stable. So, yeah, I mean, I'm confident we'll be able to put up at least 28, 30 points against UTSA, even with our backup quarterback, third string quarterback, and then our defense can win the game for us if we put up 30, I feel like.
Agreed. Before we get into keys of the game, let's touch on the quarterback situation. Charles Wright, talk about kind of the skill set that he brings, because it's definitely different than Hudson and Quinn, and not just in the fact that he was a 3-star, but play wise he plays differently too.
Yeah, so keep in mind that Charles Wright was a Iowa State commit that was like their quarterback of that class, I believe. Like he was going to be their quarterback, and I mean, Matt Campbell's had some pretty solid quarterbacks over the years. So obviously he's better than a walk-on, like people are saying. He's not a walk-on. I mean, he's just a Texas Longhorn lifelong fan that wanted to come and play here. So kind of's got that Sam Ehlinger to him. But if you watch him on film, I mean, he's small. Kind of see some Stetson Bennett in him, maybe some Major Applewhite. But I will say, last season, I was texting in my group text, my Texas Longhorn group text, during warmups, during just we were down bad. Like it was the Kansas pregame or something when we were losing 5 straight games in a row. I was like, Charles Wright's throwing better balls right now than Hudson and Casey Thompson in the pregame. Let's start him. I was saying that as a joke, but I mean, his balls look like he throws pretty passes in warmups. I mean, he's got a nice tight spiral. He's pretty agile. He's not going to run, and get 100 yards on the ground, but he's agile enough to extend plays and move in the pocket and avoid people. He's little, so it's harder to tackle, I guess. But I mean, I just don't know. You have not seen him at all. That's the thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice if Malik Murphy didn't get in that injury driving a scooter around campus, because I feel like Sark was upset about that when they asked him about it at the press conference. Yeah, it was a scooter, one of those limes. He injured himself, and then Sark looked so angry whenever it was brought up at a press conference when he had to say he's not healthy. So, I mean, Charles Wright, this is your moment probably. So, UTSA, I think you can do it, Charles Wright. You played at Austin High, so you played pretty good competition in high school. So, I think he'll be able to get us that win.
I mean, yeah, and this is like, the biggest of deals for him if he does get the start and gets to play. Like, he's really not going to have many opportunities, especially with like Quinn and Arch. Like this is his one shot. So I have faith in him. A little bit of faith. I mean, not full faith yet, because we really don't know what to expect. But considering his fandom for the team and being an Austin local and playing right down the street, it'll be exciting for him if he does get that start. Very curious to see if they do try to use Hudson at all, or if Hudson even gets to start. I really don't know. In my head, I kind of think that they're going to play, they're going to play right. And then if he's struggling a lot, maybe throw in Hudson to save the day. But I don't know. Maybe not. Not sure. But
yeah,
definitely something that'll be a talking point.
Because today in practice, I think it was like split down the middle. Like Hudson took some reps with the ones, and then like in more live drills, it was Charles Wright running the show with live reps, 11 on 11 type stuff. So I just don't know how healthy Hudson is, but apparently he really wants to play. I mean, Hudson's the guy that this is his chance here to get that job back. I mean, I say that tongue in cheek, but this is a chance to prove himself. So, he wants to be out there against UTSA and kind of get the locker room behind him and go get that win. So I think Hudson will actually play. I think it's going to end up being Hudson starting, but I can see a situation where he just doesn't look right and they just put in Charles.
Yeah.
And then we go from there. And then obviously if everything goes south, just Roshan and Bijan Wildcat to the win, baby.
Yeah. I think that could work as well, for sure.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they'll do a healthy dose of that. So
this
to the game, we kind of touched on all these, but defense got to continue to play lights out, take advantage of rushing the edge, because like you said, their tackles right now are not looking very good. And I think one of them is just like this is his first start or something like that. Like he's filling in for an injured tackle. I could have misread that, but I know there's one guy on the O-line that's like filling in. And they've been giving up a lot of sacks. I will say too, with their quarterback Harris, even though he is very dynamic, both as a runner and a passer, and can certainly expose Texas, which I'm a little worried about. The one thing that I feel like we can really get him on is he turns the ball over a fair amount. Like he's fumbled quite a lot. I don't know if he has yet this season, but like last season, that was kind of an Achilles heel for him. That, and I think interceptions as well. I think that our secondary has the opportunity to really try to get some turnovers against Harris and kind of flip the game in that regard. Additionally, getting players in space. I think the screen game can be very effective here. We should be able to block UTSA's defense very easily. Run game, I'm still a little apprehensive about, being that that was such a struggle for us last week. But at the same time, like, I think it'd be good for us to regain our confidence after that being such a struggle against Alabama, as an opportunity for us to kind of get right with the run game. But I do think that the screen game should be extremely effective with our good blocking wide receivers. And then I think special teams is also huge. You know, all around, we got to continue to have better execution with our punting, our kicking. That'll continue to need to stay sharp. And also punt return, you know, against teams like this, I think that the opportunities to house potential kickoffs and punts is there. And yeah, I'd love to see Xavier house one because he hasn't really had the opportunity to do that yet. Alabama punted the ball pretty well, and he did get some good returns against Monroe, but nothing super crazy either. So those are my keys. Any other thoughts you want to add before we get?
Just want to add one thing, and it's kind of cliche, but I think it's important that you get a lead early in the game and kind of just start wearing on them, because if you look back at their first 2 weeks, they played Houston, went to like double overtime and like a very emotional game, and then they played at Army, had to come back and win that in overtime. You know, Army's not an easy matchup either. So first of all, it's impressive they're playing these teams like that close and winning against Army, but that's a lot of football, a lot of emotion, a lot of plays in the first 2 weeks. And they're kind of be a little worn out more than the average team in week 3, mentally and physically. So I think if you go up early, they might just kind of want to, you know, just tap out a little bit earlier than they would if they weren't playing these emotional down to the wire overtime games. So I think it's important that Texas comes out and puts doubt in their minds early and just like, y'all aren't going to walk into DKR and beat us. We're too physical, too fast, too talented, too well coached, too disciplined. And then they just kind of let us go ahead and run away with that game. I will say, if Texas rolls against UTSA, then that's a great data point on this team and where we're going. I say it's going to take 2 weeks, but to know who we are, you know, after Texas Tech, we'll definitely know. But I think if we go out and just dominate against UTSA with a backup quarterback, I think it's clear that we're a little different than we were last year for sure.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. Give me your score predictions.
Okay, we'll start off with Matt Madrid, who couldn't make it this time. He's busy doing law school stuff. But Madrid got us winning 28-17. So it's got a low scoring game, kind of like I have. And we kind of all have low scoring games. We feel like it's going to be a defensive game. But yeah, it's got the Horns winning by 11. I don't know what the line's at anymore, but I think it opened it around 11-13. So I guess kind of right at the line. Personally, I have us Texas winning 31-24. So I think we win by a touchdown. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think in the fourth quarter, we're going to be kind of comfortable. I think it'll be kind of like maybe they score at the end to make it look better than it was. But I think down the stretch, we're going to kind of, you know, pull away a little bit, not like win big or anything, but I think we're going to not be sweating it down the stretch like a 7-point win might suggest. So I think we'll win 31-24. I think our offense will put up 31. I think that's what you need to be shooting for, is 30s if you're the offense. And I think that's more than enough to win the game for you if the defense shows up.
Nice. Yeah, and like you said, I mean, we all have pretty similar scores. I got 34-20, so I was winning by 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I think UTSA is certainly going to put up a few points, but given our defense's performance last week, I anticipate that we should be able to hold them back, maybe get a few turnovers. Like I said, I feel like that opportunity will be there, and we'll need to take advantage of that. So, yeah, that's kind of what I see. It'd be great to see us put up a ton of points, and a little bit surprising if we do, but yeah, 34 seems kind of like the right ballpark for me. I don't know if we'll get into the 40s, but be great if we did.
I can't wait for Saturday. I want to see what we are, because that was such a promising performance. I want to see how we look against UTSA with less hype, but I will be there. I don't want to go really, but I'm going to force myself to go because I don't want to be a fair weather fan that only shows up for the big games. I want to make sure DKR still has some energy behind it this weekend. So
There we
I'm
go.
gonna struggle through it. I'm not struggling. Why am I complaining? I'm gonna go to a football game, but I don't know. Sometimes you want to just stay back and watch it at TV, but
Right.
watch it on TV. But I'll be there. And DeMarvion Overshown had a son, so I think Dad DeMarvion might be a problem for Frank Harris and company.
Yeah, you got the timeline off a little bit on that.
Yeah, I mean, close enough.
Right. Well, cool. Thank you everyone for watching. A little bit long, I think, but we had plenty to discuss with the Bama game and wanted to make sure that we didn't skip around with that. So if you made it this far, we really appreciate it. Continue to watch our content, subscribe, and follow along throughout the season. We really appreciate it. And yeah, hopefully Longhorns are able to continue the progress that they showed in the last game, and we get a good win over UTSA and transition into conference play without any big scars. So, hook 'em. We'll see you guys later.
Welcome.